if you don't publish your achievements on LinkedIn or what you're doing, like good, right, business wise, society wise, nobody will know about you, literally.
Let's kick off. Lisa, thank you so much for this. I appreciate it. I know it's been on our radar to record a podcast, and we did it at short notice, so it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm excited to get into all things careers, your company, all different aspects. It's going to be a lot of fun today.
Me too. Thank you so much, Darren. You are such an inspiration for me. I mean, let's be honest. I found you on LinkedIn. You're so active. You're doing so many interesting things. You have been interviewing so many well-known people. So being here for me is a real privilege.
I appreciate it. So, like, obviously, our common ground is with Eric Sims. So, Eric's obviously a great dude. He's helped your career a lot. He's helped my career a lot. So, he's going to probably come up once or twice today. So, it's going to be very interesting. But before we do that, I
Yeah.
want to ask, why is it you do what you do?
So I am working in finance, but as a side business, I'm a career coach. Basically, my purpose is to fill the gap between universities and work. There is a
Mhm.
lot of that students are unfortunately missing, and they don't learn in university to get the job, and that's something that they're not aware of. So I'm trying to basically to give them all the tools and everything they need to get successful in their job environment and to be hired.
It's funny because, like, of course, I've recorded 120 episodes, wherever the stage. It's common problems that are arising continuously. You know, it's kids that like come out of university who have really little skills in the real world. They're
Yeah,
taught theory in university, but when they go into the real world, they don't know how to apply for jobs. They don't know how to get jobs. They don't know how to get
yeah.
promotions, move around. Like, how has that been for you when you were starting out? Like, was a lot of difficulties in the beginning?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like there is a kind of, unfortunately, I'm sad to say that, but there is a bit of manipulation of the society. So they make you believe that having good grades and working hard in university, that's all needed to be good at job or to get your job. So basically, what happens is that when you're not aware of recruiting process from the beginning, you just study hard, you do network, you try to get your best grades. That's a lot of satisfaction, and that, by the way, very advisable to do. But at the end, there is a big disappointment because when they go out, they're like, how possible I'm not getting the job? I was the best in the
Mm.
class. And that's exactly why I'm trying to bring awareness. And that unfortunately was a trap for me as well, because I was really studying hard. And then when I was going in front of recruiters, they're like, okay, but what else, you're doing than studying hard? And
Mm.
that's why I understood, okay, that's not only important to have good grades and that's it.
Yeah, because I think even in my early career, I always felt that, oh, I should have done more internships. I should have done this and that. And, you know, I should have done spring weeks and all that kind of bullshit. But then as time went on, I realized that that actually isn't how I should have been spending my time. There was much other things that I could have done. And we can discuss like what you were using, what I was using now later on. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because like what you're told may have worked 5 years ago or 10 years ago, but the modern day approach towards getting like a high paying, really rewarding job is just
Yeah.
completely different.
Yeah, and frankly speaking, I have been in assessment centers with smartest people ever. Like, let's say they had amazing internship as a background, they were doing CFA level 3, and they still didn't get the job because at the end of the day, they want to see that first of all you can be a great colleague to them, so you're like a real human being that they can
Mhm.
collaborate with you and go through challenges. And secondly, when you go to high-end jobs, there is also an expectation that you are going to meet high-end clients or high-end professionals, and they want to make sure that you're presentable, right? You have a good first
Mhm.
impression. You bring a very well-mannered person in front of the client, and if you're just smart and you're good in technicals, it's not going to save you.
100% agree. So let's go back to the beginning. So when you were just starting out, what were some of the things you were doing completely wrong? So let's say you're coming out of university. What was that?
Mhm.
What were you focusing on?
I will say that the first wrong thing, unfortunately, that it, by the way, it's a 99% of everything I see. It's a bad CV. So people basically just write down task-based description of what they have done. So, for example, helped colleagues with the process, this and that. And then what else can you write? Monitored data analysis for a monthly basis. And that's not good enough, because you're basically just writing down what your job was, but not what were your achievement. And of course, also the layout was wrong. It was very colored. It was not professional. I didn't know that at the time, if you apply for UK, you don't need to put a picture. Actually, don't do this. It's very not advisable. So at the end of the day, I was rejected 250 times. And as well, I was not networking at all. I was doing myself. Yeah, it was completely messed up, and that didn't bring me a job at all. And I was only focusing on good grades.
How were you applying? Were you applying through like portals and all that kind of bullshit, or were you trying to go through recruiters?
No, only online. Apply online.
Mhm.
I was doing one thing I was doing, and I advised to do is, obviously I was tracking everything on Excel who I was applying to, at least you can remember. But yeah, just applying online, not networking at all, and that's very wrong mistake, because people don't understand there is a job hidden market. I'm going to give you a little example. Obviously, we have a lot of application up there that have to be on LinkedIn, on Glassdoor, because that's a little bit of the policy. But at the end of the day, let's say there is a team in JP Morgan Bank, and somebody leaves the team, a junior, for instance. The manager, the first thing he will do, he will ask to the team if they know somebody.
Mhm.
And in case they don't know anybody, they're going to reach, the department itself. If the department cannot reference anybody, they're going to reach the HR, which is like the worst case scenario. The HR, basically for policy, will publish first in internal portal, because big companies, they have to do again for legal purposes. And
Mhm.
only after, if they don't find anybody internally or through reference, which by the way they even pay big money, they're going to publish this outside, because obviously it becomes more costly and much more difficult. So apply
Mhm.
online, just click the button, never work, because it's too competitive. And
It's
and
just
it's
probability, though, isn't it? It's like all things. It's just a game of probability.
yeah, yeah, just a little piece of the iceberg, the ones that you see outside of,
That's why it's so funny. So like my career is in fintech, and my main role is a product owner. So basically, what I do is like build features, products for mobile applications, whatever. But I really got that role because there was like a vacancy. We needed a product owner, and it would take 3 to 6 months to hire someone. So they pretty much looked across the department and said, "Who is literally the least dumb person here?" And it just fell into my hands as a result. So I was trained up into the position. I wasn't necessarily that qualified for it, but it's a
And it
reality.
makes sense, because it's too much too consuming and it's
Mhm.
costly. There is basically a research and by Google, I think, and it's publicly written that to hire somebody, it costs on average to company $4,500, and plus all the time, all the headaches, all the interview rounds. So of course, if they can find somebody internally or through reference, it's much better for them. It's just
Mhm.
a win-win situation.
So, what did you do to change really in the beginning? Because like you probably didn't. Did you know these statistics after a while? Like, what was the
That's was
turning point?
yeah, actually, it was exactly just the cherry on the cake at the end. I was like, how stupid I was.
Yeah.
Basically, I understood that I was doing something wrong, right? So I have been rejected 250 times. What's wrong with me? I feel like I was doing studying hard and working hard. So at this stage, I was networking with successful people. So somebody who was working in Goldman Sachs, I will reach and say, hey, how did you make it? And little by little, by interviewing a lot of juniors and a lot of managing directors, I understood that there was a common pattern that they're looking for. So it was not at all technical, but it was more about like soft skills. So somebody who, obviously, CV, it's always your business cards. They're going to read
Yeah.
about you, and this is the entry point. But at the end of the day, they want you again, somebody that can work with, they can train you, they can see maybe going you to a leadership position. Obviously, they hoping that a junior will make a difference in the company, and they're not
Mhm.
looking for somebody who is good in doing DCF model or the best leverage payout.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. That's interesting now though, but it's weird because like, how do you convey that message? So maybe not from your CV, but when you're reaching out to people, how do you convey the message that you're someone that someone can trust?
that's a very interesting question. Obviously, it's not easy as it sounds, but I feel like, for example, through my coaching, one of my purposes is to increase confidence, and that basically indirectly is a feedback I receive. And I feel like confidence is everything. And if you know your value and who you are, and you can go on the table and say, "Hello, I'm Lisa. This is who I am. This is what can I achieve, and this is what I'm really motivated to bring on the table." And that's where I see myself in 10 years. So working hard in this company and making a difference, that's when they say, yes, we want that person. You understand? And there is nothing that I'm talking technical right now. That's something that make you smart, something that they will say, wow, she's a smart girl. She's, doing her research. She's, interested in what's happening in the world. She knows stuff, but that's something you will be trained in the company. That's fine. That's, you know, but what you're bringing on the table, what you have done, and what you're capable to do.
Yeah, I smile because it's the coachability factor, isn't it? Like this is someone that can be coached, and that's
Yes.
kind of hard to get across sometimes. But if you're like someone who can, like I wouldn't be like the brightest dude, I wouldn't have been the top of the top students, but I'd like to think that I'm willing to sit there and just try learn and learn from people and whatnot. And I feel like that is much more admirable than the best of the best. And so maybe that's an element of arrogance then because you were the smartest in your university or whatever.
Absolutely. I mean, these people are senior and they are well aware that you have to be trained, you need a mentor, you need
Mhm.
somebody, who is going to guide you. So they know that they will do this by default. And sometimes even the company itself, it's very strict. Oh, you need to go through this training, you need to catch up with your managers this time. Obviously, let's be honest, there are bad managers and good managers, but they all know that you will be trained on the spot. You're not perfect, and actually they're happy you're not perfect. So that's the
Mhm.
thing. And how was for you? Were you trained at your job, or?
It's interesting because so for me, I've been in a couple of companies. Like I'm
Yeah.
26 and I've been in did my internship in State Street in London at 22.
Hmm.
Had a really good manager. She was tough. And she was very
Hmm.
tough, but she was really good. That was short.
Oh,
Then I joined a fintech company from there. No application, nothing. Similar to yourself, I reached out to a guy on LinkedIn and I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna work here. I'm gonna work for you for free." I literally was like, "I'll do
oh my
anything
God!
to work for
I
free."
wish you said that. I wish you
wait, wait,
said
wait for wait for this. I was in my final year of university and I hated like education so much that I worked full time, 9 to
that.
5, and then I
Oh.
studied at night. So I was like never in university. But the guy that I was working with, I guess, reached out to him and was like, "Look, I have a bit of experience as an analyst. Like, I'm happy to come in and just work with you, whatever." He eventually did pay me, which was great. But then from there, I felt like I was learning. I was in the pit and I was learning much more. So I was in a startup, and I felt like that helped me learning because I don't. I'm the type of person who doesn't like to be kind of spoon fed. I prefer to just like learn on the job. And then I left there. I don't really know why I left there. I left there because I felt big companies would train me well, and I moved
Mhm.
to a company called Accenture, which is big
Oh
consulting
yes,
firm.
very
But
well.
when I was with them, I felt like that I was babied too much. I did
Mm.
training. It was very long training. It was continuous. It was always uptime. But I
Mhm.
felt I could never move as fast as I wanted to.
Oh
So
yes,
that's
that's
that's a personal trade. I don't know what it is, and that's when I ended up moving to Revolut, and then Revolut. Then you're just drinking from the fire hose 24/7. Like you're really up against the wall,
yeah.
24/7. So I feel like the couple of years experience I have is actually much more because in Revolut as a product owner, you're termed as a CEO of that product. So I'm as close to running a company as I am without taking the risk of running the company, if that makes sense.
I love that. That's amazing. And again, coming back to what you said about I brought if I could work for free. Wow, that's very impressive. I wish people understood how valuable is a sentence, because that's where, you show the motivation, and this guy in front of you say, wow, if Darren came to me and say that, he's really motivated. And that's why I'm
Mhm.
always advising people to say, look, what's your challenge in the team, and try to solve it, like maybe a little research, maybe something, just give, because then they will say, wow, that this guy made the difference. He, from nothing, he sent me the file, he tried to solve it. That's very, very, inspiring, and I feel like this person is motivated, and that's when they hire you. And it's even easier, if you think, than going through 10 rounds, compete against 100 people and hoping to get a job. And actually, Eric,
100%.
yeah, and actually, Eric as well, one time shared the story about how a guy got a job in investment banking. So Eric seemed, obviously, our good friend, very famous on LinkedIn. He helped a person, and he recommended this person to create something unique on LinkedIn. And basically, he decided to work on a project, something like very correlated to investment banking, something, let's say, a project on valuation. He started to interview all the people needed for this project. And one day he decided to do a webinar and present his findings. It was so inspiring for everybody. And then next day he was hired. You know,
Mad.
again, it doesn't matter what you do, it just makes the difference. And you're not making the difference applying online. That's it.
100%. So you mentioned the assessment center too. I did an assessment center for Accenture. It was part of the process, whatever. It was a I actually laugh. I actually laugh at it now because it was a VR headset. Okay, you had to put on a fucking VR headset, and
Oh, no way.
you had to like build. It was like Jenga in a headset, right? It was like stupidest shit I've ever done in my entire life, and it's meant to show like problem solving. Okay, but then I obviously was like terrible at it because I just couldn't like see value in it. I understand why they're doing it, but I don't see the value in it. Whereas if you gave me an actual problem, like we have to deliver this product in 2 weeks. And we've
Mhm.
lost all of our developers. How much developers do you need? How much
Yes,
cash do you need? How much
which is a
resources do you
huge
need?
problem, right?
Exactly. Like how many tasks do we need to have? What board do we manage it on? If you gave me that, I would still fuck it up, but I'd at least be able to do it though. Does that make sense? Like I'd be able to like put my foot forward and able to try and do it?
Yeah, yeah, and that's where the crazy assessment centers are coming, because so much competition, you understand, like hundreds and hundreds people are applying. So they really have to find the niche, like they have to find like the diamonds in this application. And that's why they start to do crazy assessment centers, because they how these people have to make difference. And
Mhm.
to make difference, as everybody is smart, they need to solve these crazy problems as you were given. It's totally normal, and that's why
100%.
people could definitely avoid it. Absolutely.
Definitely. That's why I wanted to chat about LinkedIn as well because what I
Hmm.
think is funny is that I've actually never applied for a job after
Oh, I'm so proud.
my internship because I've just been able to use LinkedIn. But what's funny is the fact that before I even got an audience, which I have a tiny audience, but even before I had an audience, I was able to still get jobs. So people think whenever I say this, people are always like, "Oh, well, it's fine. You have a couple of followers, so you're able to get jobs." But that's actually not the truth. When I had no followers, it was actually easier to get a job. So how important was LinkedIn for you just in terms of like you building out your brand, building your audience, and like now you have a lot of followers. You have a very good engagement as well.
Yeah, thank you for this question. So actually, uh, I have thought about this a lot, and I'm going to give you a pretty easy answer. If you don't publish your achievements on LinkedIn, or what you're doing, like good, right, business wise, society wise, nobody will know about you, literally. So that was my mantra that made me being very active on LinkedIn. If I don't publish anything, for example, I have done a talk in Cambridge University on Thursday. I didn't publish yet, and nobody will know about my talk. Like you are exclusively, know right now. But if I publish it, people will know, and people will get inspired. People, will have like some learning about you, they will want to engage with you, and when people engage with you, there are starting to be opportunities, right? You never know.
Mhm.
So that's a little bit has been my motivation, and I have been active on LinkedIn since 2 years. And actually my mentor again was a bit Eric Sim, or at least my inspiration, because he was the one who was saying, Lisa, try to publish like 2 times a week, something small, show to people what you're doing, what you're capable. And that's really worked out for me. And now, if I was not active on LinkedIn, I will never match you. If I was not ever active on LinkedIn, I will never speak in Cambridge, or other tons of university I spoke for, or I will not even be in the job I'm now, which is this biggest digital
Mhm.
asset manager in Europe. So that's pretty clear for me that LinkedIn it's a very powerful tool, and
Mhm.
that's why also to my clients I advise to be very active, because otherwise again very hard to make difference if you're just there passive. You create your account, you never check it, you don't engage
Mhm.
with people. What's the point?
Of course, and I think you hit the nail on the head about, you don't need to be posting every day. So like I actually do post every single day on LinkedIn. It's like a thing I've been doing for like over a year. But I
Hmm.
don't think that that's actually benefited me more to on what you do or Eric does, which is twice a week. So
Hmm.
I usually would advise people to like start small and build up
Hmm.
and see do they enjoy it. And like I'm not
Yeah,
necessarily a good writer, but I just see the value in doing it, and it's just
yeah,
snowballed as a result. The Cambridge example you said is really, really interesting because I've seen you on a circuit for a while. You're speaking more, you're at more events. Every time you do it, it adds value to you. And what's funny
absolutely.
is that, eventually you're going to be getting paid 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 an event. And that is
Yeah,
coming. Like if
it's
you
even
stay at that,
happening.
but that's the reality of it though, you know? You let it
Yeah.
you let it scale and you let it grow.
So exactly. So Lisa of last year was the one who, will be like, "Oh, wow, I'm talking with university. I'm so excited." And the Lisa of today is the one who is receiving now proposals and say, "Hey, we want you this. This is what we're offering you, and will you able to come? We'll be so excited and so grateful." So you see, again, if I was not doing this before, I will never ever receive these proposals. And I'm
Mhm.
curious. So LinkedIn, it's a very interesting tool for you for podcasts. But again, except getting a job, what is helping you um, to achieve in
Mm.
general?
Exactly. I think that it has different values for different people, of
Mhm.
course. So like for me, I use it for my podcast, use it for growing my podcast, but I also use it for my career. So I'm able to connect with a lot of people. Of course, now I have my podcast agency, which lets me connect with other people and let it roll
Yes.
about. But I actually still do a lot of university talks. So I probably do around 8 to 10 a year, usually at the
Oh,
first
wow!
semester.
I'm
Yeah,
going to
so
get
I'm
one
st-
day.
I'm still very active on like the speaking engagement, but it's funny because when I started doing it, a lot of people were like, "Oh, what you're doing, you're not getting paid." And I remember seeing a Gary Vee video about a year ago when it was like he was just publishing so much content that he was invited to go to all these like speaking events, and he was just doing it for free. And then someone said to him was like, "Oh, what's your price?" And he like flinched and was like, "I can get paid for this." And then he just said 5,000. He just said 5,000, and they're like, "Okay, perfect. Here's the
Yeah,
invoice."
which is
Then
even like cheap for them, so to say. That's exactly what happened. And by the way, you see, as again coming back to the discussion you said before, I offered the guy to work for free, and I got hired. Of example, now I spoke university for free. Like you need, obviously, to sacrifice. I mean,
of
in
course.
life, you need to have sacrifice yourself, and after you will get this amazing results. And you are doing
Mhm.
pretty well. I'm so proud of you. I mean, look at you, 100 plus podcasts. It's a big deal.
We're getting there. We're getting there slowly. What do you think was a main driver in your growth of LinkedIn? Like, what was it you were doing that you know rolled in so many followers?
I think being very open, which was the
Mm,
hardest part of my journey. So not just publishing something fancy like, "Oh, I'm giving away my CV," or "I want you to help you," and obviously there is a follow because they're like, "Okay, she wants to help, let me follow." let's see where it's going through. But being open about my life, being open about how hard for me was being rejected, or for example, how hard it is to be an entrepreneur, and really show openly who Lisa is, the real Lisa. And I think this is where you are different from Instagram or from TikTok, where you
Yeah.
only show your beautiful life and people follow you because, I mean, obviously I also live a good life, but that's not my purpose. My purpose is to inspire people and shows the real side of getting a job. It's not easy. It happens. Keep going. It eventually work, but you need a strategy. And so everybody who comes back to me and say, "Oh, I really also want to grow on LinkedIn. How do I do this?" My simple answer is that, of course, be active, but show who you are and show your
Mhm.
story. People fall in love with stories.
Definitely. I couldn't agree more. I think people on LinkedIn are generally kind of more afraid of what people will think of them, and they're more afraid of like what their company will think of them. So they firstly they think that their personal brand is their company, which is like not true, and then they
No,
think that everybody is looking at them, which is just not the reality. But like
no,
LinkedIn is so.
exactly. You think that everybody will give you a judgment because you publish, but it's not true. People don't care.
And what's funny as well is like, you know, people shit on LinkedIn because they say, "Oh, it's like a job, professional, platform, whatever." But like, if you're posting on like Twitter or Instagram or whatever, it's the same equivalent in a different way, you know. So it's like, just pick it, just work on it, and then just let it kind of work for you. Does that make sense? Just give it a bit of time, let it kind of work out together, and I guarantee you that you can do what you've done is put together that career aspect, build that out, and build your company around it.
Yeah, and actually, I want to ask you a question. So, was Revolut against or had certain policy against social media, or?
Good question.
Mhm.
As far as I know, they don't. I could be wrong, but what I would say though is that Revolut is a company that's based off entrepreneurs. Like a lot of product owners have sold companies and become product owners, or are going on to become like entrepreneurs. So a lot of them understand that kind of scrappiness. So like whenever I speak to people on my podcast, for instance, they're always like, "Oh, like you brought an idea from nothing to something." And I'm like, "Oh, but I just kind of started a podcast." And they're like, "Well, you're taking an idea, whatever." So I feel like, of course, it's a bit more open than traditional finance. I felt like if I was in Goldman or JP Morgan, people could be looking at me sideways, which is probably still happening to a degree. But I always think about this is that this is the way I always put it is that if I wasn't on LinkedIn, if I wasn't posting my podcast, and if I wasn't growing like my YouTube and all things like this, I
Mhm.
would just be in the pub at the weekend with just
Exactly.
friends from growing up, having beers, and that's probably more negative towards my career than anything else, which is
Yeah,
ironic.
I
So
agree
now,
with
like I don't have a party scene anymore. A small bit in the summer, but not really. So I think that what I do in my spare time is generally beneficial for my career
you.
overall, which is
Yeah,
which is a good thing.
absolutely. And actually, it's a very good point. I have had the fear of judgment for a very long time. So I just had the fear that whatever I was doing on LinkedIn or whatever I was writing on LinkedIn will be judged by my university, my family, my friends, my this, my that. And actually, now they're coming back to me and say, "How did you do this? Can you give me any
Yeah,
advice?" So I
hundred
just
percent.
Exactly. So I just really advise, if you have any fear, don't have it. Just go ahead. It will work out. Obviously, it's not easy. The engagement is pretty low at the beginning, but then once you show your value and who you are against the stories, people will obviously, follow you and offer you more opportunities.
Of
And
course.
same, I feel like I will never ever join a company who will be against my social media, because that's not in line with my values. I feel like today we are living in a digital era, and people just know about you through social media. It's a new way of engagement. So if this is a problem for the company and it's not in line with your values, just don't go, because then what can happen is that you can end up in pubs Saturday and Sunday, and that's it. And then,
That's exactly it. No, I completely agree with you because I think that your digital kind of life and your digital career is
Mhm.
as important as actually being the day to day, because it all kind of comes together. It's like the kind of hub and spokes effect. Like your hub is your career, where you're working, what you're building, and a spoke sign is all the brand around it. So I think that's an important like lesson to learn. And that brings in nicely into asking about your company. So Millennials Consulting Group, which is a great
Yeah.
little name. I like the logo as well. It looks it's very very professionally done. Um, what was it like for you in the beginning? Like where did the idea come from? Of course, it came from all the issues with people's
Yeah.
careers, but how did you think to turn that into a business? Because it's very clear what the problem is you're solving, which I really admire, and I think that you're really hitting the nail on the head with what you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much. So again, I was on LinkedIn and I was receiving a lot of requests like, Lisa, I need help. Lisa, I want a job. Lisa, I'm getting rejected. And I just basically wanted somehow to, to kind of put a personal brand on that and really come
Mhm.
up with a strategy. I'm a firm believer that the strategy works in life because it's something like that you can plan and that you can work on. So I have created like a 5-step formula and I wanted like to sell it as a package. And that's why I said, okay, let's create a company. That's why I can brand it through. And it really worked out and people really get the message through. And I think that if you will ever ask me why Lisa you're different from others, because obviously I'm not the first into place, I will say again the difference is the following. First, I'm not a believer that technical skills will work out for you, but let's say 20% of the interview will, but that's it. And second, I'm a firm believer in the first impression. That's why I decided as well to do a finishing school this summer, which is the last in the world, where you learn about etiquette. Because again, you cannot afford to embarrass yourself in front of a client or culturally offend or maybe that don't give a good presentation, because unfortunately people will judge you in the first 30 seconds. That has been scientifically proved and by any standards. And that's why as well you cannot be hired, because people will talk about you outside of the room and will say, oh, this
Mhm.
uh, Darren looked very, very nervous just because you were sitting like this, or he was very arrogant because you were like doing something else. And that's exactly what I also teach clients, to have a good impression, to make sure that when they leave the room, they made it like their best in their best
Yeah.
efforts.
No, I think that's awesome because we'll get into the etiquette in a lot of detail as well as a lot of different aspects on it. But when you deliver this, are you working on an individual level or are you working with companies and universities? Like, how do you deliver your product?
No, for now only individual. So I'm doing like
Nice.
1-to-1, or sometimes I also offer boot camps. So I create like 3 boot camps per year, where I try to put as many people as we can, because also working in groups work, and I also can bring some speakers. Lately, university is asking help for that. I'm like working on a new project, but for now, like 1-to-1.
Nice. You should consider moving into the like digital product space. So it's something that I've been exploring like quite a lot, because and I think it will work really well with you because for instance, like we'll use podcasting as an analogy. Like I've launched so many shows. Okay, just I've done so many for clients, for entrepreneurs, for businesses, that it became the same sequences of problems. So I started moving that into courses, which I think you could do really, really well in, because if you have a 5-step plan, you can move that into a course. And if
Yeah,
someone doesn't want to pay, you
let's
know,
for 2023 plan.
yeah, don't worry. It takes a bit of time, I will say. Like for me, like I have a couple of courses. Well, I've a course already made, but I have more courses being built. It does take time. Like I have a long roadmap, let's say, for it. But I
Yeah.
do feel like for you, there's like your total accountable market is so large that you could really hammer home. I don't know, like a 2 hour, 3 hour course delivered, whatever. Yeah, lots of opportunity there.
Yes, yes. I already looked at the option to do it on Kajabi. I don't know if you're familiar with the
Kajabi, yeah.
platform.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it something you're using, or are you using another platform?
So I built mine myself, just because I wanted like more control over it. So I
Oh,
just
full
think
of
that like,
surprises.
yeah, I'm full of surprises. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to just build infrastructure, build a website underneath it, and then have it hosted. But what I think you could use is Teachable or
Okay.
Thinkific. Thinkific as
Mhm.
well is really good. Kajabi is really good, is good as well. But to be honest, I only know one or two people that actually use it. It's not that common, but Teachable is really really good.
Okay, okay,
And
okay. Have a look.
I think, and the reason why I'm saying this for anyone that's listening as well is because with digital products and when they're on like things like Teachable, they're really really professional. That's what I like about them. I think that they look very very good and that you can charge kind of a premium. Whereas
Mhm,
if you use things like Gumroad
mhm.
to me just it's very like basic. It's kind of like Fiverr equivalent. That's my opinion on it anyway. So I think for you, like with your company, with everything, you could have it integrated really well. You can make a lot of cash from it, and it would help a lot of people. Like that's the ultimate. Like you're solving a problem.
Exactly.
You
And
know.
also because obviously like my service it's a bit premium because I add a lot of value and ultimately people are getting the job. So obviously I'm charging like a certain amount, which let's say it's below 1,000, but above $500.
Hmm.
But unfortunately, due to economic conditions, there are people who cannot afford, and I can totally understand. And I feel like that's where the course can come into place, and then maybe
Hundred
from the
percent.
course I can bring these people into personal talk, and then enhance it.
Yeah, no, and I think that like because I'm very interested in that kind of online business model whereby
Mhm.
you do have like your high ticket offering, which is your coaching one to one, but
Yeah,
then for everybody else, which is like a lot of people, they can just pick up the course, move on with their life, get it done, and, and move on. And like I've had a lot of people reach out to me as well, looking for these resources. They're like they don't want to be on a call with someone 24/7, well, not
yeah,
24/7, but
exactly. It's a big
once
game.
a week or
You know.
Exactly. It depends on the person as well. Like some people could be more shy. Some people may not be like us, like on a podcast chatting shit all the time. So it depends on the individual. I just think that 2023 is like the year for that stuff. So happy to
Yeah,
lean in and give my expertise if you need along the way.
absolutely, absolutely. And your courses will also work like in kind of monthly payment plan, or it's going to be one payment.
You can do both. You can do installments, like you can do like 50/50. But I think you could probably just get it out of the way in one payment. Like I see some people charging like crazy prices for courses, but for me, I think they're much better mid-tier. I suppose my goal will be to record a lot more webinars, a lot more workshops, ad hoc things that are actually lower tier pricing. Like some of them can be $50, $100, so
Yeah,
people
of
can go
course.
in, you know, focus on one specific point and then move on. That's the goal of pretty much like an online business because
Mhm.
it's multifactorial and it becomes a lot easier to scale. And I feel like for you who has 20K, for me who's just kind of like really kind of building that kind of online presence, it's very very scalable. And
Yeah.
that's my recommendation always.
Yeah, it's nice. We're gonna start together, like
Of course.
2023 is here.
That's the goal. So I want to ask about balancing that with your career. So similar to myself, like how do you find time for this?
Oh, that's a very good question. I work hard, obviously, but that's a little bit basic. But let's say that now I have a good planification. So I'm also a really believer in technology. So, for example, for my LinkedIn, I'm using some tools that do automated posting. I have my assistants who is following up with emails. I'm using Calendly to set up like calls, right? So then my time is very efficient because each time I have some spot free and everything, the client can book and we can talk and I can help. That's what worked for me. And obviously I'm also trying to get on board some expert in marketing, so we're going to work in some kind of strategies that are automated. And I feel like that's, again, as you said, it's a bit the future because data is becoming increasingly more and more, and you need somehow like to manage all of this. So I do appreciate who everybody comment on my LinkedIn and leave emails, but it's very 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 difficult to monitor everything. So that's why obviously I'm calling on board these experts who can help me to uh, you know to make more efficient the process and help ultimately the clients.
Definitely, yeah. What do you use as your automation tools for LinkedIn?
So, oh my God, I forgot the name, honestly. Something like Hootsuite, can it be?
Hootsuite.
So,
Yeah, I use Taplio sometimes. You ever heard of Taplio?
No, I want to use. I'm very
No.
happy to change. Do you like it?
Yeah, uh, it's expensive. Like, so it does like inspiration posts. So like, for instance, like you go onto the platform for anyone to use it. It's like a automation tool that helps you schedule your posts and stuff. But it gives you like ideas for posting. But it's kind of strange because like for careers aspect, I feel like it will work really well. But if I
Hmm.
click on, it shows like inspiration to take from posts, which is kind of not really like for me. But then you go into like keyword. So I put in like podcast,
Hmm.
online business, podcasting, whatever. And the results that come back can date back for like 5 years. So of course you can filter it
Oh,
out.
oh, that's
But
very interesting. I never heard about this technology because everything is
yeah,
coming from me. So
of course,
I need,
but
I need
I
to help.
I wouldn't use it to base all posts off. But basically, it's an AI tool that shows like what's hitting the algorithm, what's
Ah,
like
that's
taking
done.
off and whatnot. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
something to check out. But like that's the idea, but the execution is different. I don't say that it's like perfectly there. I know people that use it and do really well on it. I think I need to study it more. That's what I need to do. But
Yeah,
when I wake
sometimes
up,
inspiration is what you need, right? Like a
yeah,
bit.
exactly, yeah. But so it depends on the individual. I just feel like sometimes that I don't know. Maybe it could be worthwhile, but I just need to give it more time. But for scheduling, whatever, it's good. It's kind of expensive though. It's like $50 a month, which is pretty
No,
expensive.
Hootsuite is free for 5 posts, so it's good for me for 1 week. Uh,
Oh, pretty good.
Also, I'm using Shield, which is this famous tool to analyze data. I will
Hmm.
say it's more like just to understand how it's going and to see your growth. One company reached to me, for example, they wanted to sponsor they pass through me as a little bit as influencer so I could show them the data, the engagement rate and the views of the profile. That's very interesting. I think it's something that worth to
Hmm.
look at. And then last but not least, what else I use? No, I think that's it.
Yeah, I heard Shield is really good. It's something that I want to check out.
I think
They're
they give
just
you
good
some
for
file.
yeah, they're just good for checking out what's working and what's not working, I guess.
Yeah. I think the most important is the content part where you can
Yeah,
see like which post was worked more. I think the judgment will be very personal, but ready to see what people like from you mostly. It's a big benchmark for me.
good point. Good point. The last area I want to get into is around the business etiquette point. So I've never heard of anyone that did a etiquette course ever. But when I think very deeply about these things, and I was thinking about it a lot over the last couple of days, and I was like, it's so important, but it's something that nobody thinks about is like how to present themselves. And
Abs-
even myself, like I speak a lot, I write a lot, but I don't necessarily think of how is that conveyed to other people. And if I'm on stage and whatnot, so tell me a little bit about that. Like, what was the rationale for doing it?
Exactly that. I feel like you learn a lot about first impression and good manners only if you're lucky enough to coming from a family who wants to teach you this and they are very much into that. That's something very common, by the way, but not everybody gets privileged. Or second, if you are getting into a little bit inner cycle, so to say, so a little bit like high-end society, and that's where obviously you see the best of the best, and that's where you can experience this, where you can learn. But again, not everybody is interested and not everybody is doing that. And on the other hand, everybody's talking about first impression and how important it is, and that when you talk, it's 55% of judgment, but again nobody teaches this. So I was lucky enough to find the school, which is the last one in Switzerland, actually in Europe, a bit like worldwide, to be a finishing school, is based in Switzerland, in Montreux, very beautiful city. And we stayed there 6 weeks. And every day from 7:30 a.m. till 8:30 p.m., we would learn about manners. So everything started obviously with dining etiquette. But I think the most valuable part was to learn about different cultures. So every day we will sit and learn about how to behave with Asians, how to make business with Arabs, how to behave with Americans, why Italians are into gestures and stuff like that. and it was so interesting. And I feel like the biggest value you can add to a company, at least a multinational company, it's when you can show respect in different cultures and shows that you know how to deal with that. Because imagine if you go in Asia and you just start to offend because you don't know how to behave properly, you embarrass yourself and you embarrass the company.
Mm. So speaking about the Asian example, me being based in Singapore, so this is very helpful. Um, like, what did you learn? Like, what is it you have to do?
Yeah, for example, we learned a lot about the business card. I think you're very common with that. I will get an example. So let's say if this was a business card, actually it's a Christmas card. Obviously, I give with two hands. It's a sign of respect. A gift I do with two hands. But on the contrary, right? In Europe we can do with right, with left. But Arabs will get very offended if you give with the left because it's a dirty hand for them. So they will get totally offended, right? Or sometimes if you sit, I cannot show this unfortunately, but with your feet you cross it and you show the part of the feet here to them, it's an offense. So it was very interesting to learn. And I think Asian is so about bowing, again, show it out of respect. We learned how to do it, in which occasion to do it. It's very interesting when you do it for apologizing. What else? Yeah, I mean, this kind of things that in Japan as well, how you address to people. It was very, very interesting.
Mm.
How do you think? How did you manage to learn how to behave with Asians?
It's interesting 'cause I'm thinking back to it now, like, isn't because I spent a lot of years in Asia. Um, I've been in Singapore, I've been in Indonesia, I've been in Thailand quite a lot. Haven't been to China, so for me, it's mainly based on the religion that I would say that it changes on the religion. So like I have lots of Muslim friends, and there's a specific way to, of course, interact and respect their culture and respect their religion, and that kind of goes with how you position yourself. And
Mhm.
then in contrast, I have friends that are Hindu, which is completely different. So they have a different approach, and some things that one would think that is very important is that it's just less important to someone else. So mainly around that. I spent a lot of time with, as I mentioned, like Hindu. So with that, there's a lot of rituals and ceremonies and understanding just those basic kind of cultural differences. And for me, it was the language. I think the biggest thing is that if you show like some bit of interest in like trying to learn the language or interact or ask. So for me, like I speak quite poor Bahasa Indonesia and Bahasa Malay, but I still try to do it. So, for instance, like I'll eat at like a Muslim restaurant that's like in my apartment complex nearly every day, and I'll just try speak Malay every day, and the woman like loves me. She's like 80 years old. She's like very nice. She's very cute, but it's just a funny like paradigm because if I didn't try, then that friendship or relationship or whatever would never come about, you know?
Yeah. For example, one of the valuable lessons for me was actually how to do business with Arabs. And I'm sure that it was a valuable lesson because that's what I discussed with people who do that and they agree. So,
Mm.
for example, Arabs don't like at all like a cold call and say, "Hi, I would like to talk about business. Do you have a minute?" They hate that. You really need to be very, very attentive on how you talk to them because they really care about introduction, about network, about knowing you as a person. They probably will invite you also to the country, but they first will invite you as a person, as a friend, and then when it's time, and there is a right time actually, because you have to pay attention. After all of this, you can talk about business, not before. They will not appreciate. So imagine if you don't learn these things or you don't experience, and you're just like it doesn't work out, and you lose one client, two clients, three clients, and then they start talking about bad about you because then the world
Mm.
is small at the end of the day, so people talk to each other. So it was very, very interesting.
100%. So the longer I spend in Asia, and I've been here for a long time, the more I realize that like Western culture like is just
Mhm,
so severely flawed. Like it's just severely flawed. So when people say that, oh, like Asians are like racist of Europeans, people
mhm,
will say that, But then you see what happens in practice, and as you said to your point there, they don't realize that this is a normality and this is how we should interact, whatever. And then they get a grudge. Now they may not be racist, but they might have, like, let's say, like an indifference.
Mhm.
Whereas if you approach it like you're saying, like the right approach, with respect, with dignity, with genuine care for like the other person, then all this stuff goes away. Like all these like problems and whatever go away. And to your point about like Middle Easterns or whatever, if you're going to Dubai or UAE, anywhere there, you need to have these basic premises. Otherwise, they will end up resenting people in the West because that's just the way it
Exactly.
is, you know?
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
disrespecting their culture, you know, and it works the other way too. Like there's like, you know, the Western world are not completely saints either. Like especially Irish people. So I'm originally from Ireland. Irish people are very racist towards other cultures at times, like very racist. And
Wow.
I suspect that it was probably because of them technically doing something incorrect towards their culture or whatever it is. So it worked in the opposite aspect.
Absolutely, absolutely true. Thanks for enhancing this. I cannot tell more. Unfortunately, sometimes people understand this after experience and after mistakes. That's when too late.
Yeah, of
And
course.
actually, also, this is the thing. People all want gets amazing job, and when we talk about amazing jobs, they all want to go to businesses where there is a client, right? So front office role. So I entered in wealth management, and as a wealth management role, I needed to go to conferences to meet clients. I was invited to, to places like Four Seasons for dinners and lunches. And this is a very formal setup. Four Seasons is a five-star hotel, right? So I go there and I see three forks, three knives, three three glasses. What do I do? Of course there is a strategy. You look at people what they're doing, but ultimately one day you would like to be in that place where you know exactly how to behave. And it's not only about eating, it's also about being a good guest or a good host or good hostess, and know how to interact with people, know how to show respect, asking questions, make sure that the person in front talks with you as well, and he is not or she is not sitting aside. It's a difficult job, and nobody is taken in charge to teach you the things. University,
Mhm.
no, companies don't want to do that. Or maybe they want,
100%.
but they're not aware about that.
They're life lessons. That's what's so interesting is that, like, okay, it's in a career aspect or a business aspect, but they're like life lessons. And I've had similar scenarios. Like I've had breakfasts and dinners on the 80th floor of like, you know, the most high end restaurants in Singapore with just like ridiculous like characters. And there's a certain way to interact, and there's a certain reason why you're in those scenarios. So for you, like, you're going to end up in multiple more scenarios because people know that Lisa's a good guest, she doesn't embarrass someone. Like these basic
Exactly.
premises, like basic shit.
And exactly, that's now people have pleasure to invite me to high-end places because they know that I behave well. But I saw people who don't do, and it's just an embarrassment again for everybody. And last but not least, actually, just went out of my mind. But last but not least, I will say that. I heard many stories about people who really, even wealthy, don't know how to eat, and it just stays in the mind forever in your life. And you speak with people and they give you these examples after 20 years, and I'm like, okay, just learn it, right? Just learn it, so you make sure you do the first impression. And last but not least, that's what I wanted to say actually. Companies should ask not a feedback to you like what the client said, but what was your impression, or did you make a good impression on client, right? Because again,
Mm.
the word counts 8% in the first impression. So
100%. Completely agree. Completely agree. Before we wrap up, can you let people know where they can find your work, your content, everything?
So on LinkedIn, I think it's pretty clear. So very happy
Mhm.
to engage privately. You can write me a DM. You can engage in my posts. You can go on my website. There is an email. Now there's lots are pretty finished for this year, but I'm opening up for next year. We can have a consultation. I can help you out for companies as well. Very happy to help you if you need help in this field, and universities.
Of course, of course.
So,
Lisa, thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it. We'll do more sessions in the future as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. You're doing amazingly. Keep going like this. I feel like it's a big privilege to be here again. So I totally recommend to everybody to engage with Darren. Super friendly, super nice, super smart, and
I don't know about the smart part, but we'll figure the rest out. Thank you so much, so I appreciate it.